Hello, collective listeners. Today's episode is really special to me. This is my first ever mentor in the field of strength and conditioning, Cristi Bartlett, where she's currently the director of Olympic strength and conditioning for NC State. You guys can see Cristi's an awesome human being, even better coach, and she's just fantastic to speak with, an energy giver, as you would say. So I hope you guys really enjoy the conversation, and thank you as always for listening. What's going on, collective listeners? On today's episode of the Samson Strength Coach Collective, we have a very special guest to me, my first ever mentor in the strength and conditioning field, Cristi Bartlett. Cristi, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Connor.
She's laughing because she only makes fun of me. That's basically our relationship. She roasts me, and then every once in a while, like it's like one of those, like, you know, every once in a while she'll be like, "Hey, good job," you know. But all right, thanks. And that means so much to me. I remember.
You gotta earn it, man.
100%. I remember the first time you ever called me coach. I think I jumped up and down across the weight room, and then you immediately regretted it. You were like, I hate how you respond. So,
I hate you all together.
Yeah, 100%. Hey, that's how I am. You love to hate me. So, all right. Well, thank you again for coming on. And as always, can you kind of just give us a little bit of your background in strength and conditioning, and then what brought you to NC State?
Let's see. I got into strength and conditioning because I didn't make the basketball team my freshman year of high school. So
Here we go.
The coach cut me. I wasn't on the list. Got a little mad. I was arrogant, and I grew up in this like one stoplight town. And so I was the best basketball player that county had ever saw. So when I was going to go try out for a team, I knew I was supposed to make it. So when I didn't, I walked in his office and said, "Hey, man, like, what's the deal?" Like, he's like, "You're not good enough," and this, that, and the third. I'm like, okay, I'll be back next year. I'm going to get a Division I scholarship, and I'm going to make the team and do the whole thing. He's like, okay. So that entire summer, I got into like all the muscle mags. I bought those shoes with the platforms on the top with for vertical jump. Started playing a bunch of like pickup basketball, running like light pole sprints on the back rows, just playing a bunch of ball and just like, and then I got on the Slim Fast diet. I got on the Special K diet. And then if you remember, there was a 6-second ab like thing that you put in your lap and you would just crunch down.
Yes.
I got one of those. So I just got really into like what I thought was like training. And then I came back, made basketball team, did all that thing. Now I got to my first school to play ball. I ended up getting a scholarship to go play ball at Winthrop. And my strength coach there, Chip Pugh, he was like, I was like, dude, I want to do what you do. I want to work in a weight room and wear sweatpants and get free gear. Like, I want to do this. And I was like, so tell me what I got to do. And he's like, you got to, I was an athletic training major. He was like, you got to stop that because you're not going to be able to play ball and be an athletic trainer and do the hours and all that. I was like, all right. He said, so I changed my major to like exercise science. And he was like, and then when you're done, go get your master's degree. So that summer, I got my first strength and conditioning internship at NC State in 2003 or 4-ish. 2004-ish, that summer. No. Yes. 2004, 5, something like that. And I was here and I worked with Charles Stevenson and Chris Moreland and these guys. And then I was still playing ball and I saw this article on Elite FTS that Jim Steele wrote. And I was like, I read it and I was sold. I was like, I'm going to go work for this guy. This is the guy I'm going to go work for. And so I cold emailed him. I was like, can I come and work for you? And he was like, do you have any experience? Like, what do you do? And I was like, oh, I'm a student. I'm playing basketball down here, North Carolina, all this kind of stuff. He was like, I have an internship. So of course I called my parents and I'm like, Dad, Mom, I'm moving to Philadelphia. I got an internship. They were like, you're in the middle of your season. Like, no. And you're in the middle of undergrad. Like, no, you got stuff to do. So I was like, all right. So I kept in contact with Steele, sort of. And then I ended up graduating. And so when I was at NC State for my first internship, I asked him what I need to do. He said, go get your master's degree. So I went and got my master's degree at UNC Charlotte. And then once I graduated from my master's degree, I started applying for jobs. So my first job was at Morehead State out in nowhere Kentucky. It was like a trailer park, a Walmart, the school that hadn't been updated in a while, and in between all that stuff was like a bunch of meth labs. It was awful. It was terrible. And I got to my place, and it was a nice condo, and I'm calling my parents, and I'm crying. I was like, I can't do this. I can't. I'm freaking out. They're like, well, how's the house? And I was like, it's great. It was brand new, brand spanking new, 1,200 square feet. And it was like $300 a month because of a meth lab was sitting right beside it. I was like, it's great, but like everything's so beat down. And they're like, you're there temporarily, just go there, coach, do your thing. I made a whopping like 10 grand. But in Kentucky, it was like I was living like I was eating out, just doing everything.
You told me you were the queen of Kentucky.
That was it. And so then, a couple of the coaches that were there, like my softball coaches, took really good care of us and would take us out to eat to like go get Mexican and stuff. So we was living good. And I was coaching. So then I told my boss there, Kevin DeWeese, I said, look, man, I'm applying for jobs immediately. And he's like, I understand. So I started applying for jobs, and then Steele posted a job for a full-time position. So I go out there, they fly me out, I interview, it went great. And then he calls me when I'm on my flight back, and he's like, hey, you're not going to get the job. And I was like, I start crying. I'm like, he's freaking out. He's like, are you crying? Like, are you okay? Wait, don't cry. Look, listen, we're going to take care of you. We just want to bring you in as a part-timer, because they moved the part-timer, which at then was Tracy Zimmer. They moved her up to the full-time position and moved me into the part-time position. So I was like, okay. So I called my parents. I was like, I'm moving to Philly. They're like, okay, you got a job. I was like, yeah, $13K. They were like, what? They were like, I was like, it's a raise. It's a $3,000 raise. I'm like, and I said, and it's the guy that I got to work with. This is it. So I was there for a year. Yeah, for a year. And then James Madison called me because I had applied to them when I was at Moorhead. He calls me. He's like, I got a full-time position for you. I was like, great. This is Greg Werner. And I'm like, all right, cool. So I went out there, and Steele had told me, he was like, don't leave. I'm going to make you full-time. Don't leave. And I was like, can I get that on paper? And he's like, I can't get it to you on paper. He said, but don't leave. I was like, well, I got to go what's on paper. I got to go. Yep. And so I went to James Madison, no bennies, $24K. I was like, now I'm rich. I'm like, let's go. So I go out there, and I was there for probably 5 months, man. And then Steele calls me, and he's like, come back. And I was like, all right. So I got back, and then I was at UPenn for 9 years. And then at the end of the 9 years, Steele resigned. We had new administration come in. They came in and they fired all of us, or just about all of us that had been there under the Steele regime. So then after we got let go, I was like, I got to stay in coaching. And I didn't want to move. I didn't want to leave Philly. So there was Bryn Mawr College, which is right up the street, little D3, like all women's school. And they had a position open for part-time strength coach. I applied for that. I got that. And I strength coached from like 3 to 8, Monday through Thursday or something like that. Then I get a call from Roger Marandino, he was the head strength coach at Brown, and he was the head strength coach for the Colts for a good little while. And he was like, I'm in the XFL. You want to come? And I was like, hell yeah, let's do this. And so then we move up to Mahwah, New Jersey, and do the XFL thing again. Or we do the XFL thing. And then mid-season, game 5, we get a text, and it's like COVID is shutting the thing down. And I'm like, what? And so now I'm back at home on the couch in the basement. And I'm like, what am I doing? Like, what's happening? Freaking out. Don't have a job. And then a couple months later, maybe like a month or so later, my phone rings, and it's some Tennessee number. And it's like, hello? And it's like Mike Vrabel. And I was like, oh, man. So I was like, what's up? Call. And he's like, we're looking for a strength coach and all this kind of stuff. And I talked with Frank Pirano, and he was there as the head strength coach. And I went down there for training camp. And then they were like, stay on for the season. I was there for the season. And then while I was there, I had applied for the NC State gig at some point. And then I got the NC State gig at the end of the season in February or April. I think I started here in April of 21. So
I can't remember.
That's where I'm at. That's where I'm at now.
That's quite the journey right there. I mean, that's just absolutely nuts. I mean, with all these moves and everything that you've done, like like you said, like there's you got a lot of bad breaks on certain things.
Yeah.
Like how did you stay positive? Because you were one of the most positive people I know, like one of the most positive strength coaches I know. Like to me, you're like the definition of like, hey, it is what it is, and you're gonna make the best of every situation.
Yeah.
Like, how do you maintain that positivity throughout that journey?
I mean, I was surrounded by like Steele. I remember when we got let go, he already knew. He already knew that we had all got let go because one of the trainers had called him and they got the whole strength staff upstairs and all this kind of stuff. So he called, he was like, everything's going to be all right. My parents were both like, oh, good. You're now an employee. At least one time in your life, you're going to get fired. Everything's going to be all right. Like I drove the scooter or whatever. So I'm at home after I got
the scooter.
I'm like, we got fired. We got let go. And I'm like, I got the headphones on and I'm calling my mom and I am bawling my eyes out, like driving the scooter. And I didn't wear a helmet. People are probably looking at me like, what is going on? But it was, that same day I came home and sat on the couch and started applying for jobs immediately. It was like, I reached out to like a whole bunch of, I was in football. Steele had been in football for so long. So we knew a bunch of the same people. He introduced me to a lot of people who had been at like these Power 5 schools, had been let go and all this kind of stuff. So I called them, what do I need to do? So there was like no time to kind of, I was upset obviously, but there was no time for all that negative stuff. So it was just like, we got to get the business. I got to apply for jobs. I got to call, see what I got to do now. I got to figure out where the money's coming from, what I got to do, and just keep it moving. Yep. So, I mean, it is what it is. You got fired, and now we got to move on.
Oh yeah, but now you're at NC State. How do you liking your role as a director?
No, it was. I'll tell you this: the first 6 months, I thought since I had that, and you know me, since I had the title, I thought that I had to be poloed up, buttoned up, everything that I'm not. You know what I mean? So I was exhausted by month 6, and then I was I had to check myself. I was like, wait a minute, I worked with Steele for 10 years. He walked around and he tatted up, rock and roll. I mean, death metal T-shirts and all this kind of stuff, all day long, just not Ivy League at all. And I was he was there for, damn near 30 years. So it was wait a minute, I could just be myself. The director role is fun. I feel like it's the same. You just have a seat at the table in some of these higher level meetings. And the people piece of we've got a staff of six people here, 6.5 people. The different personalities and the age differences, because I've got people who've coached longer than me, and I have people who've coached the same as me, and then some less than me. Yeah. And then you got your interns and all that kind of stuff. So that's a wide range of trying to learn that dynamic.
Yep. No, for sure.
Yeah.
I totally understand that. And I'm on a micro level of that because and here it's literally me and our director. We're the full-time strength coaches.
Okay.
Outside of football.
Okay.
And so he literally, I'm in my weight room, the basketball weight room. He's like, you do whatever you want. And so I was like, can I hire some interns? Can I have some guys come in? And you just talk about people coaching longer for you. Somebody came in to interview, he's interning with me right now. And he looked older, and I was like, hey, by the way, just how old are you? He's like, I'm 35. And I kind of just sat. I was like, okay. And I was like, hey, I'm 27. Are you okay with working for me? And he's like, yeah, I don't care at all. I was like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
So we got along well. So, but no, the people at NC State are lucky to have you as a director for real, because one of the things I really appreciate about you is you always keep it real, but you do it in a way that it's not people's guards don't go up immediately, okay. Right? I feel just you as a person, right? You kind of help people grow. For me, UPenn was a place where like fostered my love for strength and conditioning, right? Because I had to take it as a class. I remember I showed up for the interview. I came down and you leaned back in the chair and you were kind of like, I don't think you even really asked me that many questions. You were like, "Do you lift?" And I was like, "Yeah, I lift." And you're like, "All right." We kind of just like sat there for a couple seconds, and then I remember I was like, "Oh, what kind of music do y'all typically listen to?" And you're like, "Jeezy." And I was like, "Okay, I could like it here for sure." And then but it was just such a good experience for me. And like what I always like whenever I talk to classes, whenever I talk to younger strength coaches, like the question always is like, when did you know you wanted to be a strength coach? And it's tough to like pinpoint an exact moment, but I know like for a fact for me, I do have an exact moment. It was like 5 a.m. or 5:30 in the morning. Whole football team came in, and then if anybody doesn't know UPenn's weight room, that's like one straight line, like that is exactly it. And then there's offices in the middle, and then the other side's more like the cardio kickboxing area type deal. And I remember it was chains that morning. And so they were doing back squats with chains, and it was like the loudest noise I've ever heard in my entire life. And I looked over at one of the other interns who was there and looked miserable, like absolutely, like I can't believe I'm here right now and everything. And I was like, well, I kind of like this. Like this is pretty damn cool, So
yeah, you were happy as a pig in shit anytime you came in.
Yeah.
You always had a good time. It was
fantastic.
Yeah. It was always pleasant to have you around. There was always juice in the room, no matter what.
Oh yeah. But then I'll tell you what, you got your claws on me, and you actually made me train for the first time in my life, and that was miserable.
I still have that picture on my phone, like you just on the floor, by the seated row. Yeah.
I want to see if we can somehow get the listeners to see this picture, because for real, like one day I remember you taught me about Hatfield's 80-day peaking program, right? And so I was going through it with Reese at the time, another guy who interned there. Remember Reese? Yep. And so Reese and I were doing it, and I remember you were watching one of our workouts one day. You're like, "Man, this is just soft." Like, I was like, "No, it's not. I train hard." I thought I had everything. I thought I was like that guy. And then you were like, "All right, we'll go do a workout one day." And you pulled out like a Post-it note, and I didn't know at the time that was the Post-it note of death. Like that. Like you were like, "All right, we'll do this superset, this right here, we'll go run on." And then what I figured out quickly is you train with 0 rest time. Like you immediately, if it's a superset, it's a superset. We're not like playing patty cake in between and everything. and I like, it was an arm workout, and I'm literally by the end of it, like collapsed on the ground. Like just, I physically can't move. And you took a picture of me and you made fun of me.
Yeah, absolutely. We got to be better than that. We got to be better.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But that's also something I wanted to ask you about too. Like knowing you come on, like to me, I think it is important for strength coaches to be physically commanding, right? Like not necessarily from a visual standpoint, but you do have to be strong. You have to do something physically impressive. Like how have you maintained that? And then, as a director, like how do you approach that with other strength coaches? Because is that your philosophy as well too? Like, strength coaches have to train, strength coaches have to lift.
Yeah, absolutely. I tell every intern, everybody here trains. I've told the staff, I was like, I want a bunch of coaches who love to lift and who love everything regarding training and all this kind of stuff. And we have that. So what did you just ask me?
Well, I'm saying, how do you maintain that yourself? And then how do you approach it if somebody doesn't really get with that?
Oh, well, first of all, training is sacred to me. So I'm always going to get my workout in. If it's every day, it's every day. I'm always doing something every day, whether it be hard or, running and all this kind of stuff. But whatever the case may be, I'm always going to get it in. I always say the first couple hours of my day belong to me. So if my first group is at 6, that means I'm up at 4 and I'm getting my stuff in before the day starts, because I hate, if anybody bothers me during my workout, it really irks me. Don't come over here and talk to me. And, my rests are typically, kind of short. So like, you're bothering me. Don't right now I'm busy. This is sacred. And I tell everybody they need to train, especially the interns that come in here. Some of them come in like, they're an undergrad, they're like spindly, like I'm like, your athletes are going to want to respect you. So like, it's good that you get in and train, like get strong. Let's get strong first. And, I always give like the Hatfield guy or some Bill Starr stuff and like train, and then see where you go from there. And then find some other stuff that you can, dabble in as you get through, once you get strong. But nobody's going to respect you as a strength coach if you're not strong. And I tell them also, if you have the opportunity to compete in something, whether it be like, jujitsu, Muay Thai, all this kind of stuff, like do it. Like the kids will be like, oh, I want to come and watch you compete and do all the
Yeah.
things. So yeah. And they get it. But then, there's the intensity side of things because people are like, oh, I train hard and you watch them train. I'm like, that's like, what do you mean?
Not
Like,
even
that's
close.
not even close. And not even like all workouts need to be crazy, but like, come on, man. Like, you got to be able to dial in something.
Oh yeah, no, I bet that. Trust me, and for anybody listening, if you feel like you train hard, just do one workout with Cristi, and it's over.
Maybe.
It's legitimately over. I really remember after that workout for like the next day, like I came home and I just like collapsed on the bed. And the worst part was, so I was at Temple and UPenn was out in West Philly, and so you had to go out and bike out like 2 miles, and then we were like, there's that one bridge. I can't remember what the name of the bridge is. Right before you get to the
South Street Bridge?
South Street Bridge, yep. And so go across the South Street Bridge, and it was like slightly downhill going down. And I remember like closing my eyes for like 1 second, like just because I was like fatigued, like exhausted. And I woke up, almost like hit a car, and it was brutal. But you brought the best out of me. And I think too, like what was so important about it for me is now, anytime I catch myself slipping, like right now, I'm slipping for real. Like, because we hit summer, and it was like, all right, like I got men's and women's basketball. I put all my time into that, like now it's like, okay, this is my first fall off season. I'll try to focus on as much as possible. And I look in the mirror and I was like, damn, bro, like that's not good.
Yeah.
But now, like, I think you gave me the self-governor as well too, to understand like exactly when you need to catch up yourself as a strength coach. So I appreciate you for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I remember too, I used to think I was strong, and then I watched you deadlift one day and I was like, I was so pissed. You were out my max. I was like, come on,
that was
bro.
my
This
left. That
ridiculous.
was my joint. I love that.
You still deadlifting or no?
Let me tell you something. I will take like 3 weeks of my life and spend on a true strength block. And then I'm like, oh, it's too heavy now. Like if it gets above like 400, I'm like, oh my God, it's just tugging all over me. I've got no interest. Zero interest in anything heavy and from the floor. So if I deadlift, I'm pulling from the blocks. I'm like, I'm like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just like, oh my God, it's just so heavy. And it gets so heavy so fast.
That baseball wore off on you though.
Gosh,
when you were working with it, you had too much, man. Yeah, I trap our dead 600. And
oh my gosh!
Off of 18-inch blocks.
Oh man, yeah.
So how's the transition been for you? Like you said, you worked mostly with football throughout your career. How's the transition been now, being more like, completely on the Olympic side?
It's been different. Even when I spent the majority of my career at, Ivy League or whatever. So we all worked with football, and then we all had our Olympic sports. So you kind of had it there, but like you still had football in the mix. But I always compare being in football is like ER, Southside Chicago. You're always there. There's always meetings. Like there's always an emergency, urgency this, urgency that. And then like anything on the Olympic side, it's like LA dermatology. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's a cakewalk over here. Now basketball is just like own little beast over there. But like
it's a weird deal.
All your other sports it's literally dermatology, and it's like we're hanging out, like, but we're training hard, but like it's just very different. Like the cultures of the sport outside of football and basketball, it's just very different. I do miss football. I do miss it. I miss the structure and the discipline and knowing and like and some of the urgency. I don't miss like recruiting visits and things like that just take over your off season, but like it's a world of difference. But I do think that any strength coach should spend time in football, like one to 5 seasons in football, and then go do something else. And people have like their hangups with working in football because they have this image in their mind of like a bunch of guys in a weight room screaming, hollering, and just like a bunch of testosterone and like just a bunch of rage in the room. Like there was no weight room, like no strength coaches that I worked with in football where it was like that. Like Steele rarely raised his voice. He was very much a teacher. Marandino was never that. Frank Pirano was never that. Like it was and Kevin DeWeese definitely wasn't it. It was just guys who love training and love coaching guys and teaching and things like that. So when and to organize 120 guys and like there's 11 different positions or however many different positions there is. There's so many different positions on the floor on the field. You get your skill guys are like another sport and all this kind of stuff. You get like all of it in one. But I feel like people just need to spend 5 seasons in football and learn how to manage a room, command a room, organize your training, and do all the things. And you get like all this culture from just this one team. Your DBs are completely different than your O-line and so forth. So it's different. I don't hate it. In my older years, I've learned that like the age group 18 to 22, they're the same wherever you go. And once you're in a weight room, it's the same. So it doesn't really matter what sport I work with at this point, as long as I'm working with, a team and and we're having a good time and training and stuff like that. So I miss it. But
I think that's 100% correct. And I mean, two things that came to mind for me was the first was, like you say, commanding a room of 100 guys, 120 guys at a time, like for a couple sessions when I was at Tennessee, like it was nuts. I mean, and it made me way better of a coach to be able to intern in that position. Mm-hmm. And I remember one time, my group I was with they call it Jets, Tanks, and Bombers at Tennessee. Right. So skill guys were the Jets, running backs and linebackers were the Bombers, and then the Tanks were the linemen.
Okay.
And so I was with Fitz, and Craig Fitzgerald is now the strength coach for the Giants. And Fitz was like, all right, you got the tight ends. And I was like, okay, I can do that easy, right? And tight ends it's so funny because you either got like the toughest dudes on the planet or the softest dudes on the planet. Like there's no in between. Yeah. Like they're just like, they're freak athletes, but they're either dogs or babies. Uh-huh. And so he split them up intentionally. So like those two were paired at each rack. And I remember I was I'm standing at one rack looking at it and my back is to the other rack. And then I like turn and go look at the other rack because I'm looking at the two racks at the same time. And he comes up and he goes, what the hell are you doing? And I was like, I'm coaching the racks. He goes, take a giant step back. He goes, and plant one foot on each platform and look at both of them at the same time. And I was just like, all right. And so just ripping me, but like that experience again, I think also like what you talk about with the high energy standpoint, like, yes, it's high energy, like, but those like come out like the max days. Like I remember like at UPenn and at Tennessee, like that's like those are the videos you see that's everybody thinks like it's still high energy. And like you say, it's guys who love to train. So it's really fun to work in that environment. And then the recruiting visits, because I remember, and the reason I want to bring this up is because I called you immediately after this happened. I don't know if you remember this. We had at Tennessee, it was every recruiting visit would be on Saturdays. And Fitz was amazing because, like, he knew we were working for free. I mean, I was driving for Uber until like 4 a.m., and so he was like, you don't have to be here for the recruiting visits. If you're here, he'd throw you a little money on the side, And so I was like, all right, I'm definitely going in because I want to eat like more than just cookout tonight, And so I go in and I'm exhausted. And my cleans are awful. Like I still to this day, like as soon as I get above 185, my technique just completely falls out the floor. And so how they had it set up at Tennessee was they'd go through it, talk about each of the pillars, and then on lifting specifically, they would have an intern demonstrate at each station what each lift was. But it was one intern. So you would go to back squat and it'd be 315 on the bar and you had to hit 3 reps, which is like, all right, I can handle that, right? No big deal. And then you would go over to overhead press and it would be 185 on the bar, right? And so super easy. And then you had to go over to power clean. You had to do power cleans last. And so that was always 225 on the bar. Well, somebody didn't set it up correctly that day. It was another intern we were working with. And I don't know what it was. He might have hated me or something. He knew I was demoing that day. Put on 365 on the squat. All right. Put on 225 for the overhead press and then put on like 275 for the cleans. And so I do the squats, like I knock them out. I'm like, all right, that was a little heavier. And I look at the bar and I was like, well, that is heavier. Like, I immediately go over to the overhead press and like grind it out, and there's like 50 people in the room watching me do this. Like everybody's observing. And then we go over to the power cleans and I literally get it up and I do that like one, like the chicken wing where one elbow goes underneath and the other one just gets stuck there and then it drops. And in that moment, I was like, if I could just like literally disappear, like I would be so happy right now. Like in Avengers when everybody just turns into dust. That's exactly what I was like thinking of. And so, and then I remember like, I was like, I have to get this bar up. Like there's no choice right now. And I look over at Fitz and he's like in his head, like I can visually hear him. Like he's saying, he's like, you better get that shit up. I go to pull and I barely get it up and like stand up was the most awkward thing of all time. And I remember I immediately called you after and you were like, yeah, because you're weak. And I was like, and so I know every time I call you, it's always a good laugh and I'm going to get a little bit roasted. But yeah, but I agree with you. I mean, football made me a better coach for sure.
That's right, man.
Basketball is a weird one. I got to come up with a good medical analogy for basketball because, it's like it's all smooth, everything's calm. And then all of a sudden you hit 20 hours and it's like everybody's running around crazy. We're in our 20 hours right now. So it's just nuts. Man. Oh my goodness. What's it been like for you to be back in North Carolina? Because I remember we talked about when you were up in Philly, like that was one of the main places you want to go back to because you are a big family person. How's that been for you? Do you feel like it's helped you out as a coach to be closer to your family?
Oh, Philly was 5.5 hours away from home. Now home is probably 2 hours, 2 hours and 15 minutes. Yep. So it's a hop, skip, and a jump. It's good. Like, I like being able to I don't have to plan. I'm like, I'm going to go see my mom. I'm going to go see my dad. I'm going to go see the fam this weekend. So it's good. And it's home. It's home. So it feels good. And
that's fantastic.
What I love about living in North Carolina is the fact that you don't have to pay for parking or worry about the PPA all the time. So there's parking spots that I can drive up into instead of trying to parallel park everywhere I go. And then now, even when you're downtown Raleigh, like they say that they're going to ticket you, they do not ticket you. So they do not. It is not the PPA. So
I'll tell you what, though, like my favorite thing, though, is just to absolutely flex on people with my parallel parking skills. Because as soon as we'll go and like nobody here has to parallel park for anything. Like Boone is like, there's barely any spots you can parallel park in. Right. So I always hit it like that. And everybody's like, that's pretty impressive. I'm like, it's no big deal. It's no big deal. Something slight.
Yeah. Turn the music up instead of turning it down and just whip it in there. Yeah.
So, all right. And so you did mention jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai earlier. You're always a person who pushes yourself outside of the weight room too. What are you doing currently? Because I remember we talked about rolling. You got me into jiu-jitsu, and then I started doing jiu-jitsu. And then one day I called you. I was like, yeah, man, I got my blue belt. And you're like, oh, you're still doing that touch butt? I'm over here doing Muay Thai. I was like, come on, bro. What are you doing now to keep pushing yourself?
The Muay Thai, I had 2 competitions this year. They were fun. And hold on. Let's see. You see?
Oh, okay. I see it up there. A couple trophies up there. All right.
Then we got I had a couple of those competitions, and then I've gotten into so I bought a firearm, and
nice.
Tracy and Steele, they're big into like shooting and all this kind of stuff. They were like, you should go get a firearm. I got a firearm probably 2 years ago. I put it at the top of the closet, never touched it. And so this year I was like, all right, so I'm going to get into it. And Tracy does all like the tactical games and all that kind of stuff. She's done that.
Yeah.
So now we're moving towards that just to get into something a little bit wild.
You're just becoming a lethal weapon for real.
Just dangerous over here.
Just dangerous.
Yeah. But the Muay Thai, like one of our basketball strength coach for women's basketball, he's gotten into jiu-jitsu and things like that. So he's been talking about it. And I'm like, it might be time. It might be time to put on the gi again. But Muay Thai's fun. And then here, like, it's at UPenn we had the boxing room in the back and all that kind of stuff, the Thai pads and all that stuff. So we bought all the stuff here at NC State. So all the squads we're boxing and doing all the stuff now, and they love it.
I'll tell you what, Baz Rutten is implanted in my brain. If I heard that voice, it would be like a PTSD flashback almost of those CDs we played at UPenn.
Yeah.
Okay, so and then one thing I wanted to ask you about too is, you are somebody, I mean, like I every time I talk to you, it's an energizing conversation. It's always positive, right? Like you always lift other people up. And I feel like you have a really good balance between your social life, your life outside of work, and your work life. How do you make that balance? And then what's advice you would give to other coaches who are kind of struggling with that balance?
I would say, I, I, if I don't need to be at work, I'm not going to be at work. Period.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with the staff. Like when we were at UPenn, Steele was like, be here for your job and then get out. He said, there's no point in anybody guarding their desk. He had 3 rules: show up on time, do your job, and no surprises. So I have those same 3 rules for the staff here, but I added one and I said, no complaining unless you make a joke about it. And period.
Okay.
So we can complain all we want, but it's got to be funny. You better make it funny because our jobs aren't hard. And so I think that it's important to sit here and let your staff know, like, there's some strength coach or strength programs where they're like, guard your desk. Like, you'll have an entire staff come in for the first swim group at 5:30, and you're not even working swim. And they're like, be here. And then when the last team is out, the whole staff can leave. And like, for what? Like, why are we doing that? And like, if I have an early team, 7 or 9 o'clock a.m., and I got another team at 4 and 5, why do I need to be here in the middle of the day? Like, I got things I need to do, so leave. So as long as the job is getting done, you're in the building, and I don't want you to come in for your teams and then skip out. And same thing for me. But if I need to leave, I'm going to leave. And if I want to just go sit on the couch because I've just had enough and then, like, the music's too much and I'm overstimulated, I'm going to go take a break, and then I'm going to come back and I'll be better for it. I think you're a better coach if you're not like just in the building, in the facility all day, just because, you don't have to be. And especially if like you've got entry-level coaches who are making 30 grand and they've got 6 teams, like, please get out of the building, because it allows you to be able to go and get a second job or do something. You don't have to be here if you're actually coaching 4 hours out of the day.
No, there's no shot.
Like,
what are you going to be doing at that time?
What are you doing? Just go leave and go get another job or go do something. But I think that needs to come from supervisors. Like, if you're a supervisor and your entry-level coach has like 6 teams and they have on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, they're only coaching, 3 hours, please tell them to get out of the building, because they're making 30, the 30 grand, it may not be that much for them. They've got school loans and whatever the hell else they got to pay for. Get them out of the building. Get out of the building. Get out of the building.
Oh, for sure.
Get out of the building.
But that's what I loved about working for you. You were so aware of like the situations that everybody was in. Like it wasn't like this do or die type situation, like you said. Like, if I'm not here at 5:30 a.m., all of a sudden I'm not a good coach.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny you bring up the music though too, and being overstimulated, because I drive in silence. Like, that's it. Like I don't listen to music, and everybody's always like, "What? Like, why are you so silent? Like, why is it?" Like, because it's the one day like I'm in this like small area that there's no noise. Like, it's the best thing ever, because all the other time it's like country and all this other shit going on. I'm like, I don't want to listen to this, man. Like, it's just nonstop. And like, I remember somebody came in for the first time, and like we were interviewing, and they heard like a barbell drop from a power clean, and they like kind of like shuddered and jumped a little bit, and I didn't even notice it. I was like, all right, that's
like,
what you do.
This. So just this is life. Exactly. I'm gonna go back here and take a nap. I was like, what we got?
Which I got the futon right here. I might have every once in a while. So. All right. Well, is there any other advice that you would give to supervisors? Anybody kind of in a leadership role that you would say for how to best treat their people working for them?
I mean, I guess that's the only piece. I mean, everybody knows their staff. I mean, and the situations, but especially for because the big deal, or one of the things people complain about most, is like pay, as far as strength and conditioning goes. And as a supervisor or a leader of a department, you may not always have say as to what the HR is going to give you for money for your staff or whatever, but you do get to say to them, hey, you just be here for your job, and then just lift and then get out and go home and go do what you need to do. So you're not like, scrounging for money and whatever the case may be, just so you have to be here all day. Like, no.
Yeah.
I would say that. Yeah, like you do not get extra points for sitting around in the office, like dilly-dallying on the computer. Like, I know you're not in there doing work. What are you programming for the 12th hour? Like, what are you doing? Like, no shot. No shot.
No way. Absolutely not.
Yeah, so
Man.
get out of the building. Get out of the building. If you
Get
can
out of the
help
building.
it. Yeah.
And I think the pay piece too, like, I think that's like what always is interesting is people do get upset about it, but you also have to understand, like, from the supervisor standpoint, like, if they could give you a raise, they would. Like,
Right.
it's not like they're like guarding all this money that's
Right.
like, like, oh, I just can't give this out. It's like, no, like, I can't give you the raise. I'm trying to.
Yeah,
but-
I'm trying to. I'm in the front office like monthly. I can't get you the dollars, but I can tell you not to be in the building, and you can go get another job. Like,
there you go.
I could try to make your life a little bit better here. Like, what do you need from me? That kind of deal. So, I don't know. Yeah.
No, I'm sure all the people who work for you now appreciate it, because I definitely appreciate it, especially as an unpaid intern at the time. And you would pay for, what was the Greek spot that was right by
Greek lady?
Yeah. You bought me a lunch from there one time. I'll never forget that either.
Did I? Oh, wow.
Yes, you did. One time, you feel crazy one day, I think.
I must have been on something.
And then I'm pretty sure one day you also sent me to pick it up, and you didn't give me any money. I was like, all right, I'll pay for this one. We'll get you back. So, well, okay. The last question I have for you, main thing I want to know too, or how are the dogs doing? Because Cristi has like two of the cutest, like, best dogs ever. How are they?
They are fantastic and ruining my life. Like, one's 7 and the other one is like 2. The little pitty,
right? Yeah, 2.
Yeah, he's 2, and he's 2 as 2 can be. And like, I bought him a bed, so he had a bed. Both of them had a bed. He chewed it, and he ruined it. And so I was like, all right, I rewarded bad behavior. I went and got another bed. The next day, he chewed it up, and now he has nowhere to go. So now he just lays in the middle of the floor, and I was like, what do you want me to do? You want me to keep paying $80 for a bed that you're going to chew up? No, you're going to learn. We're going to learn. We're going to learn.
Consequences of your own actions.
Yeah,
100%.
No more bed. I gave you 1. No, gave you 2, actually.
Well, I got a 2-year-old dog and a 1-year-old dog. I mean, these guys run the house.
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely run the house. Like, it's just, I came down one day, and I'll never forget. I was just like, it was one of those, like, such a bad situation that you just, like, literally, like, you just have to, like, there's no response, but just be calm. And because one of them just got straight into the couch cushions, and like, yes, like 2 of the separate couch cushions were completely ruined. And so I just remember I was like, all right, well, so I'm going straight to Big Lots. Get a new couch. I don't know what to say. And I was like, well, at least I got insurance on it. And I called, and they were like, you do not have insurance on this.
I checked out for sure. Can you dig in the files? Are you sure?
I was like, come on. I know, I really did. I was like, let me check. And I pulled out like for some reason I thought like the envelope that I had my social security card in, I was like, it'd be in there. It's for sure. No shot. Absolutely no shot.
Man.
It's all right though. We got great couches now, and now we got insurance.
That's it.
For a fact. I know that for a fact.
You live and you learn.
This is my right hand receipt right here. I can actively, without moving, pull that out and pull that receipt out, because that never happened to me again. I promise you.
Oh my gosh, man!
Awesome. Well, hey, Cristi, thank you so much for your time. Seriously, I mean, this was fantastic. It was. I always love doing the podcast, but especially like catching up with you was always my favorite. So thank you for your time,
man. Thank you for having me. It's good chatting and catching up with you and remembering old stories. That shit is always fun.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Things I never forget. You might have forgotten. I never forget them. I promise you that. So. Last thing I'll say too is if you look up a video of Cristi Bartlett deadlifting. Okay, I don't know if it's still up on YouTube. I try to find it one day. I think it was like 500 for a double.
500 for a double. 500 for a double.
500 for a double. You guys can check that out. You can see how much of a dog Cristi is too. I'm sure y'all appreciate it. So
used to be, Connor. Used to be. We're not picking up that heavy stuff anymore.
No. You still are. We got the trophies to prove it.
Trophies.
Trophies. All right. Well, thank you, Cristi.
Thank you, Connor. Appreciate it.
Oh yeah.